Computer Science Department of Government Engineering College, Kannur. He is also an alumni of CUSAT. He had completed his BTech as well as MTech from the CUSAT itself. Also, he had published 5 articles in peer-reviewed journal conference. Apart from this, he has 2 years of research fellow experience in government projects. It's my pleasure to welcome you, sir. Welcome to the classroom.
Thank you, Vishnu. So, hi everyone. I can start. Today's topic is integration of hardware and firmware, which is part of the module 4 of embedded system. I'm hoping that till module 3 all are completed. This is the syllabus from the website, and this is the outline of your module 4. Here are some of the topics which I have highlighted in the violet color. That is what we are going to discuss today. Coming under the heading, coming under the title, integration of hardware and firmware. Okay, so these are the outcomes which I'm trying to cover in this session. So after this session, we are going to differentiate the different techniques used for embedding firmware into the hardware. So you can also list some steps involved in one of the technique called and you can learn about the application programming, embedding firmware. And at the end, last point which we are going to learn is how firmware is getting updating in an operating based systems. Okay. Now I'll start with a typical example, one of the common example of embedded system, and also it is one of the complex example of an embedded system. We know that a mobile phone will always almost having all the features. So left side, see this is an hardware. Okay, hardware of embedded system. We can call it as body of embedded system. And for this mobile phone, we can divide the software into two parts, because this is, I think hope you all know that this is an example of OnePlus mobile. So OnePlus mobile, they used a UI called Oxygen UI, and it running over an Android kernel. In this example, the point to be noted here, this is the hardware, and this all together, these two things together, we are calling it as firmware. Creating this firmware, this hardware, we will get this product. So we are going to learn techniques for using embedding firmware into the hardware. We will go to this. Now we go to the introduction. As we told, hardware is the body, and brain is embedded. Firmware is the master brain. And from the module 12, we are studied that how the hardware and firmware are developed. So the hardware and firmware are developed independently, and they are tested independently. Okay, so hardware are tested using some small utility programs, and firmware are tested. Okay. So once that is done, now next step we need to use the hardware. So integrating the developed firmware with the hardware. So with this process also we can call it as embedding intelligence to the hardware. So let us see what are the topics. So basically embedded systems with respect to how the firmware is developed is classified into two. One is OS based embedded system, another one is non-operating system based embedded system. So these four techniques are used to embed, which is operating system based firmware into a hardware device. So first of all, we need to refresh, you need to get now where this firmware is stored. So any embedded system concern, there will be a microprocessor in it. Okay. So this microprocessor or microcontroller is meant to execute the firmware as a task. Okay. So the firmware will be loaded either in a memory associated with the microcontroller, okay, or kept outside the processor. Okay. So the on-chip controller means the memory is resides inside the processor or controller, and off-chip memory means the code memory is placed outside processor. Okay. So whatever the case, we are going to embed the firmware into, can be either on chip or an off chip. Okay. So the techniques for embedding firmware into the code memories are use of factory programs here, out of circuit programming, in system programming, and in application programming. So let us see what is method. So first we'll see the one of the easiest technique to understand use of factory programs. So you may be knowing about these two embedded systems, I can call it. But you know, this is calculator and this is also a brick game. Some of you may have used in your childhood. So whatever. So these two, the properties of what basic similarities between these two embedded systems. So these two for mass production. One is these devices are just like an example of mass production devices. So this is having wide range of customers. And the second thing developed for a calculator is highly deterministic in nature. That means once we developed a firmware for a calculator, we no need to update it further. Or after 6 months, we don't want to update it because all the mathematical calculations are predefined, and the firmware is once developed. That is that will be the games are also like that. So in this case, we are using the factory programmed chip method. So this we will embed the firmware into the chip, that is a memory chip, during the fabrication of chip itself. Okay, repeat of hardware, the firmware will be also known as factory programmed chips, and this is only suitable for mass production. And the important points to be noted: the firmware we can't update it later because there is no external interface for the device to the customer. Only the buttons, all the features can be used by the customer. Okay. That's out of circuit programming method. This is one of the method widely used for maybe you are doing your final year projects and all. So you can program your share someone of you developing a system. You might be using this method. So you can develop a program in Arduino or some other code. You can program into your device using this method. We are taking the chip out of the target board. Target board is nothing but the hardware. We will take the chip, that is a controller or the core memory. We will take out of the chip and we will program it and we will put it back. Outside of the program, outside of the hardware, and we will program it and we will put it back. So that is basic idea of how to start programming. So here the processor, the programmer connected with a utility program running PC. So here by this figure, this is a device, a special device called a programmer. So once we take the chip out of the hardware, we will use this programmer device to program chip. Okay. Now let us see how the configuration is. So there will be a PC. You can see on the left side. This PC, we assume that the developed hardware is we are copied into this PC, and it will Linux form. That is, the firmware is located in this computer, and there will be a programmer device, which is an computer. And we using some kind of an interface, USB cable or a RS-232 cable using a COM port. So it will be connected to the computer, and there is a utility program, something like a, you might be remembering the Nokia utility program which can drive the program. Okay, so that kind of a program will be also installed in this computer. So this is how this configures. Now let us see what the steps involved in the programming approach. The very first step, we will take the special device, the programmer, and we will USB for a, okay, that is the first step. Then second step, we will power up the programmer device to ensure that the device is in the working condition. So we can see the LED indicators on the device and we can verify the device is perfectly working. So third step, we will open the utility program in the PC, and from there we will ensure the connectivity with the programmer. So there will be an option to connect or the auto something like that. That feature, the utility program verifies the successful connection with the programmer. Now, the fourth step, we will take the chip from the hardware. We will put the chip in a special socket called zip socket, which is shown like socket. We'll put the chip here. And the fifth step, in the utility program, we will select a chip from the supported devices by the utility program. Okay. So here we are selecting the supporting chip, not the programmer. We already connected with the programmer. Now we are taking a special chip from an embedded system hardware, and now we put it in the zip socket. Now in the field from supporting devices. Okay. Next step, we need to load the firmware part, that is the hex file which is already we kept in the computer. That is nothing but the firmware and utility program. The seventh step, we will program the device. Program the device using a program option exists in the utility program. So that means is initiated the utility program, the hex file will be transferred to the chip through the program. The program will take the hex file, that is a binary file, like maybe in the byte by byte or a word by word, and it will be started writing into the IC, that is the chip. So this process may take some time, depends on the language program, type of the chip, and maybe using the maybe the communication delay. So we need to wait. So the eighth step, we will be is complete. So that can be notified as using either by the by a pop-up window at the utility program. It's like process is completed, the firmware writing is completed, and also there will be a light, there will be a green LED will be lit on the program as well. So once that is done, we can unlock the zip socket, we can the tape, we can put the chip back to the target device. So likewise, we can boot up the hardware device, the firmware will be worked, and we can go for the integrated testing features in the testing. That's how out of circuit programming works. So I have some. So I'll go next session now. One of the next method which we will start before because I was planning the session until this slide, but let us see programming method. So previous method we have discussed about the factory chip method. So we will be clear. We should be clear on that. The factory programmed method, factory programmed chip method, the firmware development cycle with embedded system will be end at the time of manufacture. Then there is no other updates or there is no further support for the embedded system with respect to the firmware. And out of circuit programming, it's mainly used for the prototyping purpose, because if you are developing a like a robot car or a home automation system, something like that, we are using the microcontrollers. So in that case, this method is the desired method. So we can use a help of a programmer. We can program the chip multiple times and we can put it back to the device. And this method is not suitable for products out there. This is a product which is a customer targeted product, that is not suitable because the customer should not know this much of technical details, how to take this outside and we can program and put it there. So this out of circuit program is mainly using at the time of firmware development by the developers, and the students like you can use this method for programming. Okay. So depends on the chip you are using, you have to use a program. This universal programmer which I shown here, it supports a type of ICs called the DIP ICs. You may be heard that. So this particular device can support DIP packages of 16 lakhs or 24 lakhs and 40 lakhs. Kind of devices, the memory and the chips can be attached into this. But if you are using some other kind of IC, we have to use a different type of. So that is the out of circuit problem. So if any queries on this session, you can put it in the chat box. Okay, thank you.
Hello, sir. Sir, could you keep the microphone a little bit closer so the voice is breaking continuously? So it will be helpful to, yeah.
Okay.
So it will be better to keep the microphone a little bit closer. Okay. So
Am
have
I
you
audible
completed the
clear
first
now?
session, sir? Yeah, yeah, that's audible, but there are some distractions like dropping the sound continuously in between the. So that sometimes it's okay, but that's fine, I think. Okay, sir. Sir, have you already completed the first session? Yeah, audible, sir. Of course, it's audible.
I think
Okay.
timing
Yes.
is a little bit because I'm spanning till this one.
Okay. So
First session.
have you come? Okay. So we can go through the quick some questions. We have a
Sir,
question
I think
here.
it's breaking.
Hello.
So what I should do, I can session or we'll find clear the activities and we'll go to the session. Hello?
Hello. Sir, we have
Should I continue the session or queries are there?
so we have some questions here, so we can go through it. I think your voice is something like okay now, but still there are some issue with that dropping issue, that breaking issue.
Mm, My video is visible, right?
Sir,
Yeah.
probably we can try. Sir, probably we can try with your video off. Probably then your voice would be clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you speak, sir, we'll check if there is any breaking of your voice.
Yeah. Is it audible now? Can you hear my voice?
Yeah, it's audible, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I think we can
Yes, sir.
edit
Yes.
it without video.
Okay, sir. Then we can we go through the question, sir?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, sir. So we have a question here. From where we can get the factory program chips?
Uh, we can get the factory program chips.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what your question, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, the factory programmed chip it's used in the mass production. As I explained in this slide. I think you can see the slides, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. The factory not used by the developer like us. It's like a prototyping development, basic project like a BTech project or MTech project. So factory program chip method is not actually the calculator. If you are taking the development cycle, first it will be considered as a prototype. So that time they may be used to some other programming technique which we have already discussed, the out of circuit programming. So likewise, they will verify the firmware requirement and they will write the program. They'll run it again and then again using the out of circuit program. So likewise, they will develop the firmware. So once the firmware development is completed, so what the hardware, the embedded system designers, what they do is like for suitable for the mass production, so they will design a, because if you are open the calculator, PC button size thing, so that is nothing but the chip. So it is like during the development of chip, including the PCB having the keyboard panel and everything, the micro product part also installing that. In that chip, there will be a code memory. In that code memory, the firmware will be there. So this will be only used by the mass development companies like here something like that. Once they verified all the development is perfect, then they will go for the factory chip method. So we can't get it from the market for our purpose. And of course, we can't deprogram it. I think it's clear.
Hello. Hello, see, sir. We have another question. The difference between on-chip and off-chip code memories. What is the difference between?
I think in the previous semester we have learned the subject called microprocessor. So there we learned the fundamental difference between the chips are one microprocessor and controller are. Microcontroller will have an on-chip memory and microprocessors won't have an on-chip memory. So in the microcontroller as well, in the 8051 and all, you have studied in the 6. So the microcontroller 8051 have an on-chip memory. Okay, so in that on, the microcontroller will all new memory to it. Okay, so depends on the firmware. You can load the on-chip controller memory provided with the processor, or you need to use another memory chip. That if you are using from an external, if you are using an external memory to load your firmware, that is called the off-chip memory. So basically, if you are developing a device like a let's say not calculator, so let's take a device like an AC. So in the case of AC, we know that there is no much memory is required for firmware. So in the AC case and air conditioning case, mostly there will be an on-chip controller. But if you are seeing more complex, which having more complex features, has to be done with the help of the firmware. So in that case, the memory has. So in that case, we have to add one where the firmware can be loaded. So that is how the off-chip memory works. So the what I mean is like that depends on the hardware, depends on the chip we are using. There may not be any need of off-chip memory, but in some case there may be need of off-chip memory. Depends on that, we are loading the firmware into corresponding memories. That is clear.
Hello, sir. Sir, the voice issue still is popping in. I think there is some issue with the microphone. Could you please keep the? I think there's an issue with the microphone. It's something like dropping the sound somewhere else while you're talking.
I think I'm keeping this.
Sir, no need to unmute the. Okay. Actually, the voice is clear. Actually, voice is loud, but it's not clear. That's it. There's something like some distractions.
I get my mic.
So maybe it's a problem with the microphone. So probably removing. Can you just speak?
Should I change the headphone or?
For the students, could you please post your queries and doubts in the QA session in the meanwhile? Because we can discuss the session during the last QA session. So you can post your queries and other doubts in the QA session that will be available in your screen. So there will be a Q&A session, then you can go through it. Okay. I think some of them have joined newly, so I have shared this information for them. Okay.
Hello?
Hope it's clear. Yeah, sir.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, sir. That's better.
Please.
Yeah, so there is another query. Shall I read? Okay. Why it is not recommended to use factory program chip for development purpose?
Yeah. Factory programmed chip actually method only used by the largest. So the main issue, if you want to develop a product of a quantity of like 10 to hundreds, if you are going for a development of a factory program chip, it will be very expensive because it needs a proper designing of embedded hardwares. Okay. Feasible method. So in that case, other method can be an out-of-circuit programming or some other method. So, but factory program chips, it's a method which only used by the large scale manufacturers, which is more than 10,000 kind of devices, and also that kind of devices will have very deterministic, very limited features and features, and also the kind of features which is no need to update So only that case this method is used. Otherwise, it is not a good method. It's clear?
Okay. Okay. Sir, there is another question. How in application programming is more flexible than ISP? Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay. Yeah, sir. Meanwhile, could you please turn off your video? It may be better to avoid some bandwidth issues. Okay. Thank you. So
Yeah.
again, repeat the question. How in application programming is more flexible than ISP?
Actually, that we haven't discussed in this session, which we have.
Okay. Okay. Then we can postpone the question to next session.
We are going to explain about the ISP method and the application.
Okay, sir. Then we can continue the session. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we can continue the question. We have no more queries here.
Okay. Thank you. So we will continue.
Thank you. Yes, sir. You can turn off your video and continue the session. That's fine.
So my slide is not. Let's stop it. Yeah. Method, back to program chip method, and out of circuit program method. So out of circuit program, the key point to be noted, we are taking the chip outside and program it and we put it there. So this is another approach, which is nearly an opposite method of out of circuit programming, not exactly opposite, but we can learn it in that way. So in system programming is a method, the firmware is embedded into the chip when the chip is inside the target device. That means we are directly connecting the target device to the PC and we load the firmware directly to the target device. That means directly to the chip which kept inside the target device. This method is as we know that in the mobile phones and all, this method is normally follows. This is a widely used method consumer electronics today. But in this request, because this prerequisite is the hardware should have a support of this piece called in system programming support. So if you need to use this method, the hardware is considered about this kind of a support. Okay. So the advantage of this support is that only the target device, that means the hardware, and a cable to connect the target device into the PC, and a PC. Only these three things are needed for the in-system programming approach. Because and this method we can update firmware anytime whenever a new update is came. And the protocol support commonly used two protocols are one is joint test action group JTAG protocol and another one is serial peripheral interface protocol. Okay. So what are the steps involved in the programming of a ISP target device? So as we discussed, the device will have a ISP support. So first step, the device, that means a hardware, can be a mobile phone or whatever, special mode called ISP mode. So it's something like some of you may, if you are holding the power button and home button together, it will load in another mode of boot mode and recovery mode, etc. So likewise, the device, if it's powered up in the normal mode, it will load. But for doing the ISP program, there will be some buttons or some method, depends on the target device. By using that method, we need to power on the device in a special in-system serial programming mode, ISP mode. Okay. When the system loaded in the ISP mode, what we can do? We can connect the device to the computer. The device is powered up in the ISP mode. That means that it is now capable of communicating PC during the ISP protocol. The protocol can be JTAG or SPI, which we are going to see. Okay. So now it is capable of communicating with the utility port. The third step, the utility program, we will load the firmware which kept in the computer. We will load the firmware in the utility program. And we have an option to program into the target device using the. So by using the option, we will load the firmware. We will initiate writing of the target device. So the device receives a command from the computer. By receiving commands, there will be an order of commands. Based on the commands, what the device will do, it will erases and reprogram its code memory. So likewise, it will reinstall the firmware or update the firmware. Okay. So once these steps are done, we can reboot the device, not in the ISP mode of course. We can reboot the device normally and the device will work in the updated firmware. Okay. So this is how an in-system programming method. So in serial programming interface, this is an example of such a protocol which so like now we can restate it. So whether a device which is having an they will also specify it uses which protocol. So in our example, we will see one such protocol called serial peripheral interface SPI protocol. So in SPI protocol defines 6 primary IO lines should be in programming process. That means if you are connecting the target device to the computer, should be minimum of these 6 primary IO lines should be there to support the serial programming interface. So let us see what each lines will do. So one thing we should keep in mind that the target is like a dead device because there is no firmware in it. Only thing it's so actually, we are not giving the task to the target device, and target device is we are actually not giving the task to the target device to write program itself. Okay? We are using the method, using the path provided with the SPI, the serial peripheral interface, and the computer is directly writing the firmware inside the target device. So the computer is using the path to write the firmware. So lines are one is MOSI. MOSI means master out slave in. Here the master is computer, slave is the target device. This line is responsible for copy the firmware and transmitting through the cable and put it in the code memory. The MOSI is responsible for writing the program into the code memory. Okay. The second line is MISO. MISO is master in slave out. So this is an input line to the computer. That means an output line to the target. In this line is used for acknowledging the byte transfer which is happening to the MOSI. Because this is a serial interface, so once that one word is completed, it may give back an acknowledgement. So likewise, this MOSI and MISO is used for communicating the firmware and its acknowledgement. Okay. Now let's see. This is called system clock. Okay. So system clock, as we know that the target device is a dead device, it doesn't have a firmware in it. Okay. It doesn't have a clock or something like that. Driven by what? It's driven by the computer utility program. So it is the responsibility of computer itself to give its synchronization clock to the target device. So that is how the SCK clock is working. This is an output device from the computer, output pin from the pin for the computer, and input device for the input pin for the target device. So this particular line is used to give the clock to target device to ensure the synchronous communication happening among these two. And the fourth line device. So this line should be active during the. That means it's the responsibility of computer to keep this line during the process, and it should keep high until the process is completed. Okay, then ground and VCC, and some of the devices, some of the target devices which they won't have any battery in it. So in that case, of the master, that means the computer to give the sufficient VCC and ground power supply to the target device. But in some case, in the case of like a mobile phone and all, we know that it has it has a power supply in it. So these two lines are not mandatory for that. But as a protocol in SPI, the ground and VCC pins are. So this is how a serial peripheral interface works. you'll get an idea about this in-system programming. Now, if any queries, you can post it in the Q&A session. So now let's go to the in-application program. I think some query came on this area. So we will address the query after this session. So in-application programming is a technique. Here you can see, right? Anybody updated the firmware in LED TV? It's not the smart TV I'm talking about. So the LED TV, as we know that there is no provision for internet connectivity or anything, but there can be an option to update the firmware. So let us see. In these cases, we are using this method in application programming method. So this is a technique used to firmware which updates itself. That is, the current firmware updates itself with a new firmware. Okay, don't confuse. The firmware updates himself. It affects a selected portion of the firmware which exists in the code memory. Okay. Method is not using for the first installation of firmware. This is only used for the upgradation of firmware. That is like once in the device, then if you need to update some some features of the firmware, we can use this method. So it modifies the program code memory under the control of embedded application. Embedded application is nothing but the firmware itself. This method is mainly used for updating the calibration data pickup data. LED TV. So let us take the example of how the codecs can be updated in LED TV. So let's say an LG LED TV. When we are buying, let's say so it may support even the different formats of video like MKV or something like that. But we know that when recent videos are coming, it will come with a new formats. So in that case, the TV may not support that because the codec for the particular video may not exist in the TV. So that then how we can update the for that device. So what we can do is that we can go to the official site of the LG or what company. So we can download the latest firmware which exists, which is having the latest codecs in it. Pen drive, and we can connect the pen drive into the LG using the normal pen drive slot which we used to play the video. So using that, and in the menu option, the menu button in the remote, we can find an option called software update option. So using that, we can update the firmware. So this method is called in application program. So that firmware, that means the software resides in the embedded system, which updates itself in the other areas. The techniques is using the concept called boot ROM. Boot ROM is if you are loaded with the firmware in the code memory for the very first time, a specific portion of the memory is dedicated for a special portion of the firmware called the boot ROM. So this boot ROM is once installed, it will not change later. So whenever in application programming method, if you are loaded with if you are giving a new firmware for updating it, so the boot ROM is responsible for loading the new firmware and replace the existing firmware. Okay. So the boot ROM APIs which can capable of reading from a pen drive. It's like a reading from a pen drive or reading from a network. Whatever the way we are providing the new firmware update, the boot ROM can read it. Okay, and the boot ROM can also reprogramming the code memory segment. So it can access, it can replace, it can edit all the code memory segment other than where the boot ROM is resides. Okay, so likewise the boot ROM can do it. And the third one, erasing the code memory portion. This is works. So now we'll take in one more example. See on this if you see this message in your phone, because from an MIUI, because in some other mobile, some other update will come. So once this message is showing, it is nothing but a firmware is coming to you of updating itself by using in application programming technique. That is what it is. This is a typical example of this method. So what we will do, we will click a download button for this. during the download, we can access all other features. We can use the WhatsApp, Facebook, everything. We can even play games, not a problem. So once that is downloaded, will request us to reboot the machine, reboot the component, right? So in that, when we are rebooting, the rebooting itself, the boot room take the control, and there will be a green line or some progress will be loaded in, and it will take some couple of 5 minutes to 10 minutes or 15 minutes, depending on the update. And once that is done, the system will again boot and it will load with a new firmware. So during the update process, the update process is actually carried out with the help of a boot ROM code which exists in the ROM of mobile phone. So that is how in-application program works. I think this method is clear. Last method. Method which is used for the non-operating based system. Non-operating system based system means that the firmware we are considering as the only software part existing in an embedded system. That means the embedded system can be divided into two, and another one is firmware. Okay, and now we'll see the method for firmware loading the embedded system. That means operating system based device. So what operating system device means? There will be an hardware, there will be an operating system for the embedded system on top of an operating system. Based system usually adopts in-system programming. So that is what we are discussed before about the mobile phone. So the OS-based system usually means we can connect the device directly to a computer. With the help of a utility program, we can update the firmware and update the software in it. Okay, so in-system programming method. Talking about a thing called boot ROM. Here we are talking about bootloader. Don't confuse. Boot ROM is a part of firmware which exists in the special part of the ROM. Here the operating system bootloader. Okay, bootloader is a I call it as a very lightweight OS which having the following supports. So it will have the many options like load from flash ROM, load from networks, load from it's like a synchronous communication. So these kind of options will be there along with the bootloader. So the what OS-based system usually using is that whenever that kind of a device need to load a hardware, new firmware, suppose from the internet. So what it will do? So the bootloader will send saying in search for a firmware. When the new firmware update comes, response comes from the resource where the firmware is located into it. So likewise, an load basic control features that needed for the OS update. Once the OS updated, features existing in the form of applications or the application program inside the firmware. So it is the typical example is nothing but the mobile phone. You know that the Android is basically an OS having the coding and everything, and the device it's like a camera application, microphone access, text installed as a external application to that. So that is how OS based system works. So the main idea is that firmware loading for an operating system, the OS a bootloader. The bootloader, once the OS is loaded to the bootloader, the OS can memory device which is it can read from the pen drive or it can load applications from the Play Store. So likewise, the firmware is getting uploaded in the operating system. So the firmware updation in the operating system can be divided into different levels. First one is the basic bootloader loading. Second one, the bootloader can the OS and the OS updates whenever it triggers. And the third layer is like the application program, which can be the basic features associated with the user interface. Still, a high step, it can be a very high level application program. We can use WhatsApp, Facebook, something like that. So likewise, the embedded system based operating system can be updated. So that is these topics. So I think I'm loading now.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, have we completed the second session, right? Okay. So, can we discuss the previous question? There is a question that how in the application programming is more flexible than ISP.
Yeah, sure. Basic difference in application programming and in system programming. So in application programming, we're updating itself. So that means we don't want to use any other device like a computer, because in system programming, as we discussed, so we are using a computer with a utility program, and we are connecting in a hardware, and we are using the hardware in the firmware. It's a little bit tech knowledge about how the system works, what utility program I need to install, and where should I download the proper ROM for the device. For example, in the case of a mobile phone software, maybe many of us may be familiar with that. So once some bugs happening in the mobile phone, service center people will tell we need to change the software. So that time the in-system programming is used. So they download the proper ROM from the official website or XDF forums, and they will they will install the proper utility program, and they will use a cable or USB cable to write the program in the device. And there is also a chance if you are not using the correct ROM, the device will crash and the device will be damaged. Okay, so that is why in system programming it needs a little bit knowledge about how the things works, and it should need a utmost care as well. Application programming method. So we know that we have a firmware in it. Only thing we are providing the suitable firmware with the help of a pen drive or a internet, which is the available facility to it. So in that case, the customer, no need to know about any technical thing. Only thing he need to download from the official site and putting it and using the menu option, just give the update software. Likewise, you can see this window. This is a technique in application program techniques. That is also usually followed by the mobile phone companies. So whenever it's a minor update, it's not like an update. It's like an MIUI or Oxygen. It's like an interface. So in that case, they will just send that this kind of an application program method. In that method, the user is only thing click a download button and click a restart button. The firmware will do it itself, and there is very less chance of getting it damaged, because only it will get damages if you are removing the battery. Otherwise it will be updated itself. So that is how in application programming is a very easy method. I think it's clear.
Okay, sir. Sir, there is another question. Somebody wants to know about MISO versus MOSI.
These are the two primary I/O lines used defined in the serial programming interface protocol. So in system program, actually does this, like it takes the firmware from the computer and it is getting transferred to the code memory which resides in the target device, right? So in that case, the MOSI lines is the primary lines which copies the firmware byte by byte or word by word from the computer, and it like transmitted through the MOSI line right to the code memory of target device. And when a serial communication is happening, a serial or parallel communication, there is a case of set this, the sender is a computer and the receiver is a target device. So it is the responsibility of target device to give a proper acknowledgement about the progress of transmission. So that every word, it may send an acknowledgement signal back to the computer. So that is what the MOSI and MISO means. So MOSI is responsible for transmitting the signal, and MISO is responsible for getting the response, getting the acknowledgement from the computer device. The main point, the computer MOSI is an output signal for the computer and input signal for the mobile phone. MISO is an input signal for the computer and output signal for the target device. I think it is clear.
Okay, sir, we can go to the another question. What is ISP mode?
Yeah, in system programming, we have discussed we can connect the target device using a USB mode. So we'll take phone itself. So when we are connecting a mobile phone, it's an Android mobile phone directly to the computer, what will happen? It will ask us for some questions. There is charging only, or it's a file data transfer, or a camera PTP mode, something like that. And that mode will be the normal mode which is used by the user. But when we need to actually reprogram the system, or we need to upgrade the firmware in it, or we need to change the firmware. So this mode is not sufficient because the firmware is already loaded in. So now, if since the firmware is loaded in the target device, I mean the working condition, so we can't change the firmware. So what we need in ISP programming method is that the firmware should not be live, but the device has to communicate with the computer. So for that, a special mode will be associated with these devices which is having ISP support. That mode is called the ISP mode. Okay. In the ISP mode, it means they are in the memory but not live. It is residing in the memory as bits and bytes. Okay. But USB cable can connect it to the computer, and the computer can access the memory, the core memory inside the target device byte by byte. Okay. So that is what the ISP mode means. So in ISP mode, the computer can access the core memory directly inside the device, and it can reprogram it. So ISP mode, that is not possible because the firmware will be alive. So that is what the ISP mode means. I think it is clear.
Okay, sir. Sir, we have another question. Somebody want to know about more information on JTAG and UART interface.
Okay. Actually, the JTAG, even I have shared the material of your textbook. The JTAG is another protocol. They are mentioned like that. Even in the textbook also, it is not much mentioned about the joint test action group protocol. Even I am also not explored much about the JTAG because it will be something similar to the peripheral interface, but the pin names and pin definitions will be different. So I think I can share the material later if this is required. And what was the next one? JTAG again?
UART interface.
It's a asynchronous interface, which is like a have that UART port. It's an asynchronous receiver by transmitter mode. So that will be an additional interface to the devices. We can communicate the devices which supports serial communication. A UART driver in the device. So in some computers, some embedded system, if it has a support for the asynchronous direct asynchronous communication, that is a UART support. The UART support will be given with the support of dedicated ports and the dedicated IC, driver IC for that. If that support is there, we can communicate with the device which is having the UART. Okay. So it's something like it's same as a port, like a USB port. Network we are using the RJ45 port, something like that. UART is another port. I think that you can learn from internet very easily.
Okay, sir. So we can move to the other question.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. What is the difference between bootloader and boot ROM?
So boot ROM actually it's used in the in-application program. So it's actually part of a single firmware. When we are first installing the firmware into a device which supports in-application program, the very first installation will contain the entire firmware, which also include a boot ROM. and the boot ROM will be kept in a can be at the extreme low end. It's like the code memory start from 00 to FFFF. So the boot ROM can be reside in the very end, the least end of like in the range of FFF. The boot ROM will resides. The purpose of boot ROM, the boot ROM is a set of routines which is capable of accessing the other memory part. It's like a 0000 to the start of boot ROM. There will be a huge core memory area. The boot ROM have routines, the code routines, which can access the memory and erase the content of the memory and something like that. Okay, so the boot ROM, once the boot ROM is installed in an application program, when the firmware update comes, what boot ROM will do? The boot ROM will responsible for taking the firmware and replace the remaining portion of the code memory and place the new firmware according to the update, how the update has to be done. So that is what the role of boot ROM. Actually, boot ROM is part of the firmware. Loader is different. Bootloader is not something like it is capable of loading an operating system, which can be learned in the case of computer as well. The bootloader is responsible. It's a very basic. The OS which is having, it's like it is having the features like accessing from the standard ports, something like that. Bootloader have all those features. So the bootloader is, the main purpose of the bootloader is to load an OS. Okay, so the difference between the boot ROM is loading a firmware. That means it's replacing the firmware in the remaining portion of the memory. But the role of the bootloader, it should load an OS location. The location can be I listed here 1, 2, 3, some other location. Or bootloader is mainly used for the loading OS in a based embedded system. Okay. Once the OS is loaded, remaining the features like the firmware features are handled by the support of OS. So the purpose of bootloader is loading the OS. The purpose of boot ROM is to change the remaining portion of the code memory to update with the new firmware. I think the idea is clear. No?
Okay, sir, I think we don't have any queries here right now. So we have covered almost the queries, and
Sure.
we can wind up the session right now. So thank you for coming and sharing your knowledge with our students as well as us.